What's up, guys? You're listening to the Just Go For It podcast. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm your host, Pearson. As usual, our episodes are fairly short, fairly unedited. If I say the same thing wrong 3 times in a row, I'm going to cut that out. But for the most part, pretty short. Basically, what this show is about is, for the most part, it focuses on fitness, training, triathlon training to be specific, but I will have other types of training involved, and then personal development and personal improvement. So with that being said, the best way to get a hold of me is through Instagram at Just Go For It Podcast, all one word. I'm on there pretty often, or at least I have notifications turned on. So if you send me a message or a comment or anything like that, I will hear, I will get back to it, and I will try to engage everyone that I can. So today's episode will launch on a Thursday, and Thursday I have set to be my personal development / improvement and kind of getting the best out of your own life type of episode. Tuesdays are the training and fitness and kind of that type of thing. I have had a couple interviews on the show lately, and that is, personally, I'm taking that as a big step forward in the show. We're growing, we're getting some attention, we're getting more listens and more downloads, which is fantastic. So everyone that is listening on a regular basis, I do appreciate you guys, just immensely. Keep doing it, keep talking about the show and sharing it with friends. Let me know, drop a review or feedback. I'm not sure I think you can do it through Anchor. Anchor is where I do all the recording, and then other platforms too, but the only ones that I think that I can check without going through too many loopholes is like Apple Podcasts. If you listen on Apple, that's awesome. Drop a review or a rating, and then that will really help move me forward through the ratings that I can get more listeners. So today, speaking of interviews, at some point I will have, she's over here, my wife on the show as a guest and do an interview with her. She runs her own Etsy shop. She's a very crafty lady, and I think she's very successful in her own right, and I think it's wonderful. I definitely want to have her on the show at some point soon, and have things go well. So today's episode is going to be focusing on time management and kind of getting the most out of your day without really taking many more steps, but obviously taking some more steps. So it's going to be mentioning books, 3 books in specific. Books that are going to be talking about are Talent is Overrated, What Really Separates World-Class Performers from Everyone Else by Jeff Golvin. The 10X Rule, The Only Difference Between Success and Failure by Grant Cardone. And Less Doing, More Living, Make Everything in Life Easier by Ari Meisel. Or I think it's Meisel. I'm not sure the pronunciation of that correctly, but I believe that's how, because I listened to it as an audiobook as well, and they pronounced it there. Those 3 books have really, really helped me dial in kind of not necessarily just time management, but moving forward and towards my goal. Like, part of how I got to here is reading these books and taking skills that I got from there and little bits and kind of really, really directing it in my own life. So with that being said, also this this episode is also going to be a YouTube and audio episode. So for everyone in YouTube land out there, this is my shop. This is my studio. It's my basement. It's a mess, but this is what I got. So I'm working with everyone out there in audio land and podcasts. Hopefully my Blue Yeti microphone, which I'm not sponsored by them, but they make some pretty bomb mics. So hopefully the audio is coming through schmantastically smooth like butter. Okay, so let's dive right into the episode. So the first book that I wanted to talk about is Talent is Overrated, What Really Separates World-Class Performers from Everybody Else. Basically, the synopsis of the book is that almost anyone, like literally almost anyone on the planet, can be world-class at any given thing or topic or performance. It boils it down to skill versus talent. So talent being something that you're born with, that you just have. People who, a good example of that are some professional athletes who are just genetically gifted. They're different muscle fibers, different, metabolic rates. Like, physiologically, they just are a different version. They're humans. They're a different version of a human than the average person. Like me, for example. I would love to be a pro athlete. I don't think physiologically I have the capability to be a top level world class pro athlete. I can be good. I can be above average, but best in the world, hard to say. I haven't really stressed my system and done enough training to get to that point quite yet. But that's also what the book makes. The point the book makes is that some people, and it mentions Tiger Woods, Ludwig von Beethoven, and a Russian team of scientists, just two scientists, got together and had children. The children grew up to be these phenomenal chess players. And basically what it's based upon is that given a long enough timeline with enough intense training, you can become world-class at anything. So Tiger Woods, for example, uses the example that his father was a world-class professional golf coach. And then at the ages of, like, starting at 2, I believe, he would watch, Tiger Woods as an infant would watch his father play golf, like, meticulously with direction and form and coaching from that age on. So from the ages of 2, well, he's in, a high chair or, sitting in a baby bouncer, basically, just watching his dad for hours on end play golf, the sport, with perfect and utter conviction to every swing and every stroke. So what that did is that cemented the sport of golf within Tiger Woods' mind as a young child. And I think everyone's heard of the 10,000 hour rule, where it takes approximately 10,000 hours to become professional or proficient at any one topic or any one thing. So with Tiger Woods starting so young, he had, thousands of hours in before most other people even, had an interest in the sport. So he got as good as he did, as quickly as he did, and it made him seem like such a prodigy. Prodigy? I'm saying it right. I'm going to cut out the first, so we're going to pause. Made him seem like such a prodigy in golf because he had spent so much time in it much earlier than other people, so he had that time to develop those skills. The other example was Beethoven. Everyone knows Beethoven's heard of him. This is phenomenal composer, way back in the time. And the same case for him. Beethoven's father was another phenomenal composer who spent so much time working with him. I guess saying Beethoven for both of them because Beethoven was his dad and Beethoven was his son. So Ludwig Beethoven was the child who spent so much time working with his dad to write music, to compose music, to play music, that he had so much more experience so much earlier on than everyone else who had had a chance to even grow an interest in the art of performing and the art of writing music. So he had just much more time and experience in that. Another one, actually, it's not on my list, but the Beatles were mentioned in this book, and that the way they started playing together was, I think they were working a gig where they did like 5 shows a week at a bar for like 7-8 hours a day. So basically, they were playing nearly 40 hours a week for like years before they really had made it to the point of where they'd got that worldwide fame and notoriety. By that point, they had built such a strong bond between themselves within the band that they played so well together that they were playing beyond the level of bands that had just gotten together. Obviously, because they had spent more time together. So it's another point in the book is that there's something they call meaningful practice. And that's not the right word for it. But basically, it was deliberate practice. That's what it's called. So it's not what everyone else calls practice to this point. Basically, practice, and the term that they mention at deliberate practice is that it's something that you would practice a skill. Let's just something really simple. So riding a bike. Everyone knows how to ride a bike well enough to not fall over. That's the difference between riding a bike at the world-class Tour de France levels or world-class BMX or motocross or these mountain bike riders that are their skills are so dialed in. Their balance is so perfect. Their legs are so much stronger. Cardiovascular systems. Those are all things that are developed over years and years of riding and training. So the skill of riding a bike, most people acquire that skill to the point of not falling over, continuing in a forward motion in a line typically and not falling over one way or the other. Typically, that's where people stop. So the point behind the book is that deliberate practice is something that you would do and you focus intently every minute while you're performing quote unquote practice to getting better. So you're seeking out all those things, all those imperfections that you're doing wrong, and you're finding ways to improve those. And I think the book mentions that it's like to do this deliberate practice for longer than an hour is extremely mentally taxing because you're focusing so hard on performing this task to absolute perfection every single time. So this creates muscle memory. This creates, stronger pathways in the brain between your neurons and between all those other the synapses that are firing. It creates, perfect performance every time, which is exceptionally mentally difficult. It's not alone just physically challenging to do the same thing over and over and over again, but to do something and mentally analyze exactly what you've done wrong and exactly how to improve that thing for the next time. Incredibly difficult, incredibly challenging. And that is where a lot of people kind of fall off. I'll admit myself, typically when I learn a task enough to become proficient at it to not fail. And depending on how much I enjoy what I'm doing or depending on how much I want to pursue that more, dictates how much more I try. For example, I'm training to go to Kona, the World Championship in triathlon, which means I have to spend a lot of time training, a lot of time riding my bike and swimming. Unfortunately, the swimming part, that's kind of excluded right now because COVID's a thing and that hates the world and I can't swim. Running and riding, those are both things that I can do right now. So every time I'm on the bike or every time I'm running, I'm focusing intently on my stride. I'm focusing intently on my pedal stroke, how I'm breathing, what my heart rate is, how much I'm consuming on the bike, water and nutrition. Those are all things that are immensely important to figure out sooner rather than later so that as my training gets more and more intense and more involved, I'm able to sustain it for longer. Knowing that, I know that I need to focus intently on everything I'm doing. So sometimes I'll have music on, but sometimes I won't, and I'll just listen and try to feel like what's happening in my body, what's happening, how are my legs feeling, how do the legs feel. And it's really, really important to intently focus on each moment to know where your weaknesses are, which is something most people are terrible at. We don't like to focus on our weaknesses and we don't like to focus on our failings because that makes us feel bad. And it sucks. You like to focus on the wins and the positives, and those things are important to acknowledge, but not to live on. Like I mentioned in the past episode, the 24-hour rule. If you stay focused on a win, you don't develop. If you acknowledge your losses and your failings, you know where to improve. So that's what the book is based on. The book is based on spending immense amounts of time in deliberate practice and focusing on the loss so that you can learn from the loss, grow, get stronger, and win. But you can't stay in that. You got to keep growing and keep trying. So that book was really, really helpful for me because it really changed my idea of what practice was. Practice wasn't just doing the same thing over and over and over again and kind of just hoping to improve. Practice then became doing something with massive intent on each action, specifically each action and what I was doing wrong for each thing. So it allowed me to actually get more out of my practice in a shorter time and grow to a different level quicker. So I definitely recommend reading that one. That's an awesome book. And the first time I heard it was an audiobook I think it was through Audible. Yeah, it was through Audible the first time. And then I think I bought the book, I think. Either way, it's been a while since I read it, but it's a great read. The next book that I want to talk about is The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. So Grant is this uber successful real estate and training. I don't know if I want to call him a guru. I don't know if he calls himself a guru, but basically he's like the go-to guy for both real estate investment, like money, financials, and stuff like that, and then a training platform. He has a program for training people to train other people, I think is how that works. In the book, The 10X Rule, to put it in a nutshell, basically, to complete any task, you need to apply 10 times the amount of effort and resources and time to that task than you originally thought to get it done successfully. So I'll use a good example. For me, this podcast, right? When I first started this podcast, I didn't have this mic, the Blue Yeti mic. I had a different mic. It worked, but the audio quality wasn't as good. So I had to spend more money on a higher quality mic to have it work more efficiently. To get interviews, I have had 2 successful interviews, and I have just today, recently, I've had another person respond with interest, and we've confirmed date in the future. We're going to have that one later on. That's 3 out of the 15 messages, emails that I've sent out. So 3 out of 15, actually not a bad percentage of success rate. So I'll say that could be partly because of who I'm reaching out to. I'm not trying to reach out to like celebrities who are immensely busy, but I'm reaching out to people who are more in my field and more in my sector, which I guess is a good way to put it. But even in that note, 3 out of 15, it's not discouraging in the sense that it makes me want to stop, but it's definitely like, I'll send out a couple today, a couple tomorrow. And I think the biggest part for me personally is I'm not waiting for a response before I send a different email out. I would rather be overloaded on the end of I have a lot of interviews scheduled that I can get to versus I send out one email. Okay, I'll give them a week. And if I don't hear back from them, I'll send out a different one. That would have taken forever. I send out 2 or 3, at a shot. And then if I think of other people, I'll send out 2 or 3 more. So it's that massive effort up front to get you to your end result. And I think the same thing applies in pretty much anything else, especially sales. So in his book, he tells a story about how he started his company. I forget the name of his company. I'm not sure. I think he was starting the real estate company where he had to just I think what was overcommit. So he took on so many commitments up front that he didn't know how he was going to complete them. But he mentions that the biggest obstacle you'll ever encounter is obscurity. So no one knows who you are. So it doesn't matter what you have, what you're selling, and you could be selling the cure to cancer. If no one knows who you are, no one knows that you have it, essentially it doesn't exist. They can't find it. They can't buy it from you if no one knows who you are. So it's exposure. It's getting out there, getting your name out there, talking to people. Just push as much as you can. So massive, massive effort to try to accomplish that goal. And you have to talk to so many people to get any gain, to get any ground on, accomplishing your task. So again, like I had mentioned with the podcast, actually with hearing back from the number of people that I have heard back from versus the number that I've sent emails out to, I think it's actually going really, really well, which is, it's encouraging knowing that going in, I know I was going to have to talk to a ton of people before I would get to the point of where I was actually having interviews. The interview that I had with the buddy, it was a Thanksgiving Day episode. That went super well, and it was a really, really great icebreaker for me to get used to talking to people on a mic, on a camera, and kind of setting it up for an episode. It was a great practice episode to set me up for talking to someone who I didn't know, who was a professional, who, had degrees and who owned a company. Someone completely out of my realm. It was great to use the term practice. It was great practice to know what I had to do differently and the questions that I had to bring up forth. And the 2 interviews that followed with CEOs of Infinite Nutrition and Bentham Bikes, I feel like both went really, really well. Now I know there's always room for improvement and there's always that chance to get better and to accomplish more. But I have to put in that massive effort. And just on that note, I am A-okay with sending out hundreds of emails to get more interviews and to get more practice and to get more people on the show, because I feel like essentially that is the meat of my show. Yes, I have things to say. Yes, I got a lot of stuff to talk about. However, I know that it's impossible for me to know what I don't know. Or no, how does it go? You don't know what you don't know. No, that's not right either. There's a saying out there. Basically, it is that like it's impossible for you to know what you don't know. So in that, these other people that I'm going to be interviewing who have the background in nutrition and running a company and personal development and training, they know things that I didn't know that I don't know. So having them on the show to talk, to share their experiences and their learning and their growth through their own realm and their own space is going to influence me. And my hope with that is that it influences me. It also influences everyone listening to this show, is that everyone that listens to the show can grow in some way that's going to better their lives. That is the point of my show. My show is striving to make life easier, not just for me, but for everyone else, for everyone who is listening to the show and takes the time to share the show and talk about the show. If my show helps people get through something or gets closer to a goal or figures out how to manage themselves, their time a little bit better, perfect. Speaking of managing time better, that brings me to my third book, Less Doing, More Living, semicolon, Make Everything in Life a Little Bit Easier by Ari Meisel. And this book is all about trying to squeeze out as much efficiency as you can out of every day. Basically, it's automating everything you can in your life. Now, I don't agree 100% with everything in it, because I feel like some things you have to have your touch to them. Have to have your there's a word the word I'm looking for and I'm not finding, more than just like your touch. It has to have kind of like your signature, your vibe to it, that gives it that difference from anybody else. He talks about the 80-20 rule, which I think is basically doing 20% of the profit, 20% of the tasks that yield you 80% of the profits, because not everything you do will yield a profit, but some things you do will yield a lot of profit. So eliminating tasks that anyone can do and only doing the ones that only you can do. So by that, here's a good example. So my podcast, only I can do my podcast because it's my podcast. I sit here, I talk about different things, and I'm also spitting a lot of my thoughts out. And those are my thoughts exclusively. Someone else can't speak my thoughts for me. It doesn't work that way. However, we recently started an Etsy shop. Now, an Etsy shop is a great way to get funding, but also it's a great way to market my show, which is great. Now, I signed up for drop shipment, which if anyone doesn't know what drop shipment is, it's a third-party producer or production facility that makes your stuff for you and sends it out. Or another way of looking for it is it's, odds and ends, different products that are found somewhere else that people buy through you that somebody else ships out to you. So you don't really have any part in it. I signed up for a website that would make my shirts, store my shirts, ship my shirts, and I have no part in it. So I didn't partner. I signed up for and I linked it to Etsy. So our shop is out there. You can go to Etsy. So it's etsy.com/justgoforitshop. Has 3 shirts of mine with our Just Go For It logo on it. You can purchase that. I have no part in this. That order goes to this company. They make the shirts, do all their stuff. They ship it to you, and then you have your shirt. Wonderful. So you've supported the show. I took in funds that are going to go back into the show for research. I would love to get a new desk. I would love to get a different mic stand. I would love to get some type of studio something. And that's where all that's going to go, and into more development for the show. All why I didn't have to spend time doing that because someone else can do it. So the whole synopsis of the book is, if you don't absolutely have to do it, don't do it. Use your time to do something else, and use your time, which is valuable, in a more efficient way. So that was an example of that. It's something that I need to do, but that doesn't mean that I specifically have to do it. He mentions, I think there's 2 websites where it's virtual assistants. So as anyone knows in a company and any business, there's always an assistant or an admin assistant, someone that who handles your emails, your scheduling, your calls, your meetings, a lot of the face-to-face interactions that don't necessarily need to get to you. He has someone, third party, somewhere else, that would handle emails, calls, scheduling meetings, all these different things that need to get done, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he has to do them to run his company or to run his business. So essentially, it's you put a buffer on your life and you limit your time to just the things you have to do. I have to record this podcast. I have to spend time with my family. No one else can do that for me. And nor do I want anyone else to do that for me. That is something that is dear to my heart, and that time is valuable. So, for example, yes, making shirts myself with like a screen printing process here would, one, give me complete control over it and when it's done. So shipping times would be different. 2, profitability is different. But the more important thing is I'm already a little strapped for time. My wife works a part-time job. I work a full-time job. We've got 3 kids. We've got family. There's COVID. I'm also training for a triathlon and trying to do all these other balancing acts. So my time is already stretched pretty thin. And while the extra profit would be great, the time necessary and storage, as you can see behind me on YouTube land, audio land, basically I'm in a basement and everything's full. That's it. Time and space are both valuable, and those things, it's hard for me to justify, okay, yeah, I want to make a couple extra bucks, but I got to spend much more time to make that couple extra bucks. Pass. I'll have somebody else do it. So it still gets done. I have to spend a little bit extra, I guess spend a little convenience fee of a charge for them to do it for me, but everything keeps moving and I didn't have any part in it, which I think is fantastic. I know at some point I'd like to take that over because of the profitability of doing everything in-house would be better. But that's okay. Excuse me. Another thing he talks about is batching your tasks. And what that means is, a good example would be meal prepping. So cooking all your meals for the week, Monday through Friday, your breakfast, your lunch, your dinners, cooking all that stuff at one time on the weekend, and then portioning everything out in food containers. You eliminate your cooking time during the week because you've done all the cooking on the weekend. All you have to do is grab your little thing, your lunch, toss it in the microwave, eat it, bam, done. Now, that does make your weekend a little rough because you spend a couple hours or however long cooking all that food, but then it's done. You have to spend, an hour each day cooking the food because it's already been cooked. So batching tasks that you can. Another good example of that would be emails. A lot of people that I listened to other podcasts and they mentioned you have set blocks of time to do set things. A set block for emails, a set block for making sales calls, a set block for meetings. When you can do that, you you eliminate the clutter, right? So that, let's say from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., you're doing emails. So between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m., you do nothing but emails. You are answering emails. You are sending out emails. You are, scheduling different things for emails during that time. 9 to 10, sales calls. So if you get an email 9:30, unless it's immensely important, needs to be handled then, you're on sales calls. Or if you're out of sales calls, which, let's face it, you probably shouldn't ever be out of sales calls. You should always have someone to talk to about something in a sales call time frame. So batching your tasks. That book, all these books, but that book was really helpful for me to find ways to get more time. In the past, I probably would have thought, you know what, I could save a little bit of money and I can create a little bit more profit if I do all the shirts myself. Like I said before, my basement is full, my schedule is full, but I can have someone else do it for me, yield a little bit less profit, and everything else still works the same. That book was really, really helpful in figuring out, what is the most important thing for me to do and where do I need to save time, shave time, and make time. All important things to do. The 10X rule was helpful in knowing that I needed to apply so much more effort in the beginning to get my result than I thought I would need to apply. And that actually works in other areas of life. For example, training, physical training. Most people, especially if you've done any type of training for any type of specific event, the training parts that matter come in two basic sections. The immense amount of time to build your base endurance, which it's low level zone 2, that's kind of boring. But also your high intensity training, it matters once it starts to hurt. Once you really feel taxed, you really feel that growth, that is a huge indicator that you are in the growth department, the growth section. You have to break your muscles down. You have to get sore and feel discomfort to grow stronger. So you've got to apply more effort than you first thought. And then that effort level also shifts. As you get stronger, you have to apply more and more to get the desired result of getting faster, of getting stronger, of getting healthier. And the Talent is Overrated book, that helped me understand what deliberate practice was, and knowing that on a long enough timeline, I can be world class at something and I can have those things. And I think at the end of the day, if you understand that we're all humans, everyone on the planet, every human, every person you know is a human and are biologically and physiologically like 99% the same, or something like that. 98, I don't know, 99. It's like we're all essentially the same living species. We're all humans. If you can take a deep dive into that and understand that the people that you look up to, your mentors, are also human. If they have it, you can have it. If they got there, you can get there. It's going to take time. It's going to take work. It's going to take sacrifice. But an important thing to note is don't look at someone's last chapter of the book they're writing and think, well, I'm not there yet, when you're on chapter 2. Take into account where you are, the things you've done, the things you know, and the time it's taken, and be realistic. Figure out, okay, your mentor, where was he 20 years ago when he started? That's something to consider. If 20 years ago they had just started and they were at the same place you are, for all, argument's sake, you're on the same path. Just keep going, keep driving, don't quit. Focus intently, apply massive amounts of effort, and get efficient with your time. So that's today's episode, is you can become world-class at something if you provide enough effort and enough practice over a long enough time frame. You can have what you want if you apply enough focus on one thing. And if you need more time, use the skills from that book, Less Doing, More Living, to find more time in your day. Use batching your tasks, use virtual assistants, use all these different little things that can squeeze more time out of your day so you can do the things that you need to do, not just the things that need to get done. Those are different. Understand that those are a different thing. So guys, these books were huge game changers for me. I'll put up links in the show notes. I think those go to everywhere, all the platforms, the show notes. So you should be able to click right through the link and it should take you right to the book. They're all on Amazon, so they're all super cheap. And like I said, the best way to get a hold of me is through Instagram. Just Go For It Podcast, all one word. I'm on there pretty often. I respond. I will respond to everyone's comment, to everyone's message. So if ever you guys reach out to me, you want to be on the show, you want to have questions about past or future episodes, let me know. It's the best way to get a hold of me. And I will try to keep these episodes coming for you guys. Check out the shop on Etsy. That is, personally, I think that's the best way that I'd like to receive support or show support from the show. I don't want to do ads yet because I feel like it's really an involuntary process. It really like locks you in. Like, you have to listen to this. I demand it. If you want to support the show, I think that's awesome. And I think that's probably, I like that way to do it. So, check it out. Stay tuned for more episodes. I'm trying to get some more interviews and try to get some more stuff on for you guys. Have a great day.